So since about the middle of last year, the rumour mills for Sony have been hyping up the prospect of the A7S III, and will it be 4K 60 capable, will it be 4K 120 capable, or even will it be 8K capable? Also the A7000, which is by all accounts essentially an A9 with an APS-C sensor in. So there's been all this talk of these two cameras on the way. The A7S III was supposed to be released late last year and was apparently delayed for improvements to the design. The A7000 is rumored to be getting announced at some point in January, and yesterday Sony announced the A6400 and caught everybody off guard. Now, I haven't used the camera, I haven't tested the camera, unlike some reviewers, because, well, Sony haven't sent me one to test out. But I can't grasp exactly what this camera is meant to be, exactly who it's aimed at. Everything that I've seen so far in terms of reviews and publications, everyone's focused on the fact that it's a vlogging camera, that it's got that flip-up screen for you to be able to see what you're doing. Now that's a similar setup to what I was used to using when I shot with Canon when I used the M3 mirrorless camera, because that had a flip over screen as well. But as Canon Conspiracies kind of rightly pointed out, you know camera conspiracies, the guy who spends all his time looking off a camera and making weird gestures and then occasionally just pausing and looking back. Well, he rightly pointed out that a flip up screen presents one big problem, and that is the microphone. Because a lot of people who shoot vlogs tend to use shotgun mics with dead cats on them. And if you mount this on top of the camera, you can't flip the screen up. Or if you can flip the screen up, you can't actually see what you're doing. You'd only actually be able to see the outer edges of the screen. And that's neither use nor ornament when you're trying to frame yourself up. That was one of the reasons why I generally use a lav mic rather than a shotgun mic, because I couldn't have a shotgun mic. So if you are somebody who uses a shotgun mic for your videos, the only solution that I could think of would be some kind of L bracket that comes out of the bottom of the camera and puts a shoe mount on the side so you can have the microphone at the side of the camera. But that's just making the whole camera system a whole lot bigger when it doesn't need to be. I mean, granted, on kind of a lot of small shotgun mics, if you remove the dead cat, you can kind of get away with that, but it's still not ideal. But you take the monstrous microphone that Sony are advertising it with, you've not got a chance in hell. It's not even the microphone that gets in the way, it's the unit that plugs into it. So I think a side articulating screen would have made a lot more sense for vloggers. However, I still can't understand if the camera is actually aimed at vloggers or not. Fundamentally, the rest of the camera is pretty much an A6500. It's got the same body design as the A6500. It uses the same sensor as the A6500, just coupled up to a newer processor. It shoots 11 frames a second, which I believe was the same as the A6500. And then it includes video-centric features such as the 4K 30p, the flip screen, whether it's a good or a bad thing. It also includes S-Log profiles and HLG profiles. So seems to be very focused around video shooters. However, I've seen no mention of in-body stabilization in this camera. So it looks like Sony haven't included IBIS in the camera, which kind of makes no sense at all. If it's aimed at vloggers, you know, people who walk around with the camera held out, bouncing around, in-body stabilization is absolutely ideal for that sort of situation. So if you're going to make a camera design for vlogging, it seems kind of stupid to take your A6500 and go, okay, the A6500 would be a perfect camera for vlogging if we had a flip-up screen. Right, we'll put the flip-up screen in. But take the in-body stabilization out, because you don't need that. Now, Camera Conspiracies did also then suggest that because they've put a flip screen in the A6400, they wouldn't be putting one in the A7000. I'm inclined to agree with him, possibly, I don't know. By the looks of the rumors that I've seen from the A7000, it is essentially the A9 body. They've just taken out the full frame sensor and put in an APS-C. So if it's an A9 body, I don't think it's going to have a flip screen because it's got a central viewfinder, so a flip up screen won't work. A flip down screen, well, Canon did that with the M5 and nobody's let them live it down since. So the only solution would be a flip out screen. And I don't think they'll be able to modify the A9 body to have a flip round screen. So I don't know. However, on the flip side of it, I think because they've now put a flip screen on that camera, people will expect flip screens on every camera following, especially considering everyone's been asking for them. But whether they will or they won't, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see a flip screen on the A7S III, but I'll be covering that in another video in the near future. However, there's something else in amongst all the announcement of the A6400 that I've not seen really anybody talking about, and I think is actually a big deal that people have missed. Which is that in amongst all the marketing hype of the A6400, they talk about having the world's fastest autofocus system that can apparently acquire focus in 0.02 of a second. They also talk about real-time IAF. Now, from what I've read of this, it seems to be that they've essentially just made the camera's going to have constant eye autofocus. However, the big news from this, and also big news for subsequent A7 III, A7R3 and A9 users, is that this real-time autofocus not only works on humans, but also on animals. Last year at Photokina, in a press release, Sony announced that they were working on their eye autofocus to be able to work on animals. Now, honestly, when I read that, when I saw the press release, I thought that they were looking for kind of the A9 Mark II. I figured it would be a whole new level of hardware required to make that system work. It's seemingly not only in the A6400, but come April this year, Sony will be releasing firmware updates for the A9, A7 III, and A7R3, which will include this improved autofocus, which will apparently be able to detect and autofocus on the eyes of not only humans, but also animals, which I think could be a potential game changer for wildlife photographers. Now, I'm not suggesting that come April, every wildlife photographer on the planet is going to sell all the Canon and Nikon gear and go and buy an A9 and a 400G master lens. Not what I'm saying at all. However, if Sony have developed this technology for their cameras now, then I think that gives Canon and Nikon probably about 3 or 4 years to sort their shit out and come up with their own version of animal eye autofocus, because I think in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll see Sony release the A9 Mark II, which will take the A9 one step further. They've already released the 400G master lens. There was patents before the 400 came out that they were working on a 500 and 600 f4, and they used to have super telephotos like that for their old A-mount cameras, so it's not like Sony are incapable of making these lenses. So I think 4 or 5 years' time, Sony will have the A9 Mark II and a range of white lenses that would be a fantastic setup for wildlife photographers. So I think if Canon and Nikon haven't upped their game by then and brought out cameras to give that same functionality, then I think we would see wildlife photographers shifting systems. But regardless of which system they're shooting on by then, I think animal IAF is a game changer for wildlife photographers, regardless of which system you're using it on. So come April, when the update for my camera comes out, I think I'll be updating my firmware. Because currently I'm still on version 1.02. I never bothered with version 2 when it came out because didn't see the point really. But animal IAF, I'm up for that. But the A6400 seems a bit of a camera as far as I can tell. I think we're all still eagerly anticipating what the A7000 and the A7S III are going to bring to the table. But what are your thoughts and opinions on the A6400 release? Do you think it's a promising camera? Do you think they've fallen short of the mark? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. Thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.